sitting alone in an ancient rusted Ford pickup, outside of our weathered family cabin in northern Colorado. The morning after my father's burial was the only item he ever left me. It was a bitter day. The chill isn't the only factor, but because I felt a complete and utter paralysis inside. A man whom I loved and despised equally had just been laid to rest. I was left without a business by him, and real estate, not to mention an announcement of regret. He did, however, abandon a vehicle whose radio had broken and whose ignition would not cooperate. I bent over and opened the glove compartment out of habit, or maybe out of sadness. I was anticipating the typical jumble of items such as crumpled napkins, outdated insurance documents, and maybe a torch. However, the information I uncovered lay in wait. The paper was nicely folded, squished between a silver compass and an oil-stained map. My name was missing from the envelope. Little more than 4 phrases penned in strong black font. Regardless of who she may become. As I extracted it, my hands quivered. As if it had been waiting for something, the paper had become yellowed and thin with age. That time has finally arrived. Upon opening it, I realized. Then everything took a turn for the worst. There was no will. There were no budgetary or procedural specifics offered. A confession was made. Last but not least, the truth from a guy whose entire life was consumed by sorrow and quiet. He didn't just abandon my mom and me. Now he had to decide. A legacy that carried on for decades. Now, with his final remarks, he was essentially asking me to do a task that he was unable to do. He wasn't seeking forgiveness. It was a turning point. Out of nowhere, the compass clicked into place. The north direction was wrong, alluding to something that has been buried for a very long time. Something which would make me reevaluate my views on sacrifice, loyalty, etc., and what it means to love someone who is halfway through a relationship. In my mind, the burial was the last chapter, but it was only the start. Hello, I am Emma Callahan. Once upon a time, I thought there was a regular pattern to life, a subtle regularity, like a little town kitchen's worn-out clock. When I was a kid, I lived in Durango, Colorado, where everyone knew my dad's name business and the precise year he left the family firm. Mom did her best. She grinned through every storm, worked extra shifts at the cafe, and prevented our 2-bedroom house from collapsing. She was completely complimentary of my dad. The stillness, more so than any cry, it resounded. What I want after graduating from high school was something beyond the stench of bacon grease and small-town chit-chat. In pursuit of an undefined aspiration, I uprooted my life and headed west to Denver. I had a degree in interior design and a heart that was too tender for this world when I was 22 years old, just out of community college. Nathan Prescott and I met there. Fall was nearly arrived, the type of day when a slight nip in the breeze makes you long for something toasty. As I waited in line at a little coffee shop just off 6th Avenue, I fiddled with my phone looking for cheap apartment postings that weren't plagued by mice or peeling paint. Before me stood Nathan, embroidered in tan, scarf in navy blue. A subtle cedarwood and monetary aroma lingered. After I struggled with my card, he walked up, grinned, and offered to cover the cost of my drink. He said, "I've got it," in a voice that was out of place in Colorado. Friendliness characterized him. At peace, he had an air of unassuming coolness that put me at ease despite the fact that he seemed to hail from another planet. Under a striped patio canopy with leaves fluttering about us like confetti, we conversed for nearly an hour that day. At first, I was confused about his identity. So he was helping his family transition out of legacy assets, he said, and I had no idea what that meant. He was a real estate developer. I adored the way he gazed at me, like if I were his only focus. I found out the truth later on. He was engaged in more than simply real estate. He came from a long line of influential Chicago landowners, the Prescotts, and his inheritance included development projects all the way from California to the East Coast. It was too late by the time I discovered it, though. His charm was beginning to captivate me. Nathan gave no indication that he was born and raised in executive offices and penthouse apartments. When he stayed over, he did dishes, laughed at my jokes, and once bravely drove 2 hours through a snowstorm to bring me soup because I was unwell. He gushed about my repurposed wood furniture and my collection of wildflowers in vintage mason jars, praising my austere lifestyle. After 6 months of dating, we shared an apartment. It wasn't intentional, though. Nonetheless, he was never seen again after a certain night. We were able to get by for a little. Before he would go on a business trip, he would kiss my forehead. Throughout the day, I would send him images of fabric samples and paint swatches via text message. He was a big supporter of my decision to launch my own design firm. It was his belief in my ability to create something from nothing, an eye for spaces that felt like home that he attributed to me. Still, in my heart of hearts, inexplicably seemed transitory. It seemed as if I were stealing moments from a life that was never destined for me to lead. On the day I informed him I was expecting, that sensation became more intense. His moment of paralysis was all it took, and then he muttered, "We'll figure it out," kissed my forehead and grinned. Trusting him was important to me. I wished against hope that he really meant it. The introduction, however, followed. In her direction. The mother of Nathan is Vivian Prescott. Our casual family brunch in Aspen turned out to be more of a royal inspection, thanks to her invitation. Their Mountain View vacation house was on 5 acres. The cuisine was made by a skilled chef. Softly, a violinist performed. I sported a dress I found at a thrift store and boots with a few scratches on the heel. There was little need for Vivian to speak. It was all I needed to know from that one look, cool, measured, and looking both ways. She remained silent. I was not slandered by her. That wasn't necessary. She said, "I heard you're expecting," her voice as sharp as the wine she was sampling. "How can I? Out of the ordinary." I grinned, encircled Nathan's finger. He had a softer hold on the reins now. He remained silent the entire way home that night. He claimed to be just tired. However, I sensed a change. It was completely unexpected how quickly everything would fall apart and how profound that shift would be. In hindsight, I should have probed further. I regret not pressing for clarification. But love, it obliterates your vision. At other instances, it causes you to remain mute. After breakfast with Vivian 3 weeks ago, I saw that Nathan began sleeping with his phone face down. He mentioned that the firm was set to start construction on a new property outside of Chicago and that he was occupied with growth plans. But there was a strangeness. Holding a drink of bourbon that he seldom sipped, he would gaze out the window for extended periods. Unlike normal, he would get up early for work and stay late to get home. He reacted as if my hand were an immense burden. As I reached out and touched his shoulder, the tension I rationalized to myself. Being a father for the first time, his family's legacy put him under strain. But I knew it in my heart. He was seated on the floor next to our bed one night, with his head buried in his hands and elbows on knees. I woke up to see this. "Nathan, come talk to me," I murmured. Looking away from me, he continued. "Attempting was all I said. This is my best effort." Roses were his return item the following morning. 12 exquisite petals with lengthy stems that were too big for our little flat. In a passionate gesture, he planted a kiss on my stomach. I assured you we would overcome this. However, his gaze was already bidding farewell. He was present in the delivery room on the day the twins were delivered. He slashed the ropes while holding my hand and sobbed when he heard their cries. I thought things had improved for a second. Jacob and Lily were their names, delicate blushing ideal. He gazed upon them as if they were priceless gems. "I will always be there to protect you," he muttered as he kissed my forehead. It was my deepest desire to think that was still the case. However, 10 days down the road, he appeared like a ghost as he passed through our front door and spoke the words that would set everything in motion. This is too much for me. When he said late nights, I assumed he meant the constant wailing and feedings. I reassured them, "It's tough now, but it will get better. I swear." He disapproved by shaking his head. "Excuse me, Emma, but I am not able to remain." With Lily's little fist around my necklace, I stood there clutching her. When I initially gazed into Nathan's eyes, I didn't see love. "Give up, I saw it. Explain yourself." In a state of genuine fear, my voice broke. Breathing slowly and brokenly, he paused. "Mama was correct. That can't continue. We are not meant to be in the same universe." With Lily clutched to my bosom, I retreated, hoping she might protect me from the oncoming danger. "Do you really intend to depart?" "I apologize," was his sole statement. After that, he left, not going to argue, avoid pleading without a second look. All I could hear was the door slamming shut and everything around me crumbling. I sat in the nursery alone myself that night, Jamil sound sleeping in his cot. As I held Lily, she sobbed. I only swayed from side to side, desperately hoping to break free from an unending nightmare. Days became hazy. Calls were no longer returned. Messages were no longer responded to. There is no one I could explain it to. What do you say when the man who pledged eternal love instead gave you a penthouse and a promotion instead of your family? Aching from childbirth, my body ached. The pain of betrayal pierced my heart. Leaving wasn't the most difficult part, though. What followed was utter quiet. Missing resolution, no justification, no more than that. I approached him in an attempt to get in touch, written materials, emails. His secretary informed me that Nathan was traveling indefinitely when I contacted him once. That is, he had departed. On the lease, his name did not appear. This flat was leased out to us under my name. He had taken care to be legally free. At that point in time, I was a mother raising my children alone. In a family with identical twins, with no joy whatsoever, only a baby monitor, a mountain of debt, and a shattered heart. Screaming and slammed doors were the things I used to associate with treachery. However, Nathan showed me that treachery may be subtle at times. It creeps in like choking fog slowly but surely. I gave the ring away. I traded it in for some diapers and food. For days, I did not wash my hair. Sleepless nights. I used to hide in the hallway and scream harder when my twins cried at the same time. Not due to my lack of strength. However, I felt completely unnoticed. More than anything else, that invisibility stung. The stroller was noticed by many. That diaper bag. The stains from spit up. A lady who was grieving the loss of a man who was physically there but no longer hers went unnoticed by others outside. I couldn't help but wonder, what went wrong? Could it have been my attire, my origin story? The reality that I felt out of place at formal events like galas and fundraisers. However, the reality hit me every time I beheld my vulnerable little infants. That was not me. It was never my fault. Fear was what he felt. His vulnerability. A delicate drop of his mother's poison into his ear. A son was not raised by Vivian. An heir was reared by her. In the end, he decided to leave a legacy rather than pursue love. Underneath sadness is a certain type of fury, a slow, hefty fire that doesn't rumble but does burn. The sensation persisted each time I heated a bottle, whenever I ironed a little garment, whenever I peered into the mirror, I always saw an unfamiliar face. His departure wasn't the hardest part, though. He had no intention of staying, and that was the realization. Until the twins came, he just lacked the courage to tell it. The indecision, the quiet, it left an indelible mark on me. Retaliation wasn't necessary. I rather he not return. I only yearned for the resilience to transform into an unbreakable person. In the middle of the night, when the rain was tapping on the windows and the infants were sound asleep next to me, I got up. After Nathan threw me to the floor of our living room, I lifted myself up. I began the process of rebuilding. Surprisingly, the first morning after making the decision to stop crying was chilly. Before the sun came up, Jacob had already soaked through his onesie. The floor under me was ice, and the kitchen smelled like old formula and stale coffee. I refrained from crying, though. I put my hair in an unruly bun, heated up some coffee from the day before, and turned on my laptop as if I were checking in for a job that didn't yet exist. I was juggling the needs of two people. My stability is being tested as I care for two infants. It was now or never to crumble. A downtown Denver boutique interior design business was where I worked part-time before I became pregnant. I adored it even though it wasn't flashy. We mostly prepped condominiums for speedy selling. Transforming stark, lifeless rooms into cozy, lived-in havens of beauty was one of my favorite things to do. With the twins born and Nathan gone, I contacted them again this time with the hope of returning, if only on a part-time basis. The reply was courteous. Your post has been filled, unfortunately. Emma, I wish you the best. Have a great time. I was unable to accommodate any childcare arrangements. Away from home. Hours cannot be adjusted. A couple of newborns, some unfinished thoughts, and an out-of-date resume were all I had, but I still wasn't going to let it deter me. While my baby slept, I perused employment ads. Cover letters were typed around 2 a.m, lying on my chest as Jacob slept. Quickly and mercilessly, people were rejected. Someone with more availability is what we're seeking. We are not prioritizing your experience at this time. Perhaps even worse, you will receive absolutely no response. For women like me, weak, emotionally invested, and firmly grounded in our responsibilities, every unresolved email was a stark reminder that we were invisible in this world. I persisted, though. I compiled a list of all the possible freelancing jobs I could locate in an Excel spreadsheet, got in touch with staging firms in the area, took it a step further, and messaged old classmates to see if they needed any help with design. Totally none. I was desperate enough to snap a picture of the nursery one night. It wasn't much, just a rocking chair I found at a thrift store, a mural I created on the wall with leftover paint, and a pair of matching cribs. However, it had an element of candor, a cozy, worn-in feel. Along with the shot, I shared a little message on Instagram. Between feedings and breakdowns, it was lovingly crafted. Parenting isn't without its flaws. Although it may not always be lovely, 4 people started following me the next day, 12 more by the weekend's conclusion. There was no epidemic. Not only that it was unpopular, it was nevertheless something. Afterwards, the message arrived. "Hey, I love your aesthetic," a Boulder-based mom named Cassidy said in a direct message to me. "Are you ever hired on an as-needed basis? I'm working on a room makeover for my kid." I went completely still. Work on commission? Somebody was offering to pay me to make something new. I tried not to scare her off by giving her a ridiculously low quote. That was her agreement. As my infant slept on each side of me, I would stay up late making mood boards. Printed on postage-paid envelopes, I had 2 additional little tasks at the month's conclusion. Revamping the bookcases. Sitting in a cozy corner, I can read a book. Every cent seemed like hard work, even if the salary was little. I felt like the fabric of my former self was being patched together with each compliment. I was still aware that I couldn't climb this indefinitely. The day just didn't seem long enough. Plus, the budget hardly even covered baby wipes and formula. So I observed something one afternoon while I folded laundry. Those little garments. Either they were extremely pricey, or they were poorly constructed and felt rough on the skin. My eye landed on Lily, who was donning one of the onesies I had sewed by hand, using a swath of organic cotton that a neighbor had given me. It was a fantastic fit for her. It was very cute. The most crucial thing was that she seemed at ease wearing it. And suddenly, a spark was kindled. I had an idea. What if I made reasonably priced, fashionable, and incredibly soft baby clothes? I didn't work in the fashion industry. I didn't come from a fashion family. However, I was adept at making stuff. Cloth was familiar to me. Visual appeal, balance, design. Over the course of that weekend, I borrowed Mrs. 2B's dirty sewing machine. Elkins, a former seamstress who enjoyed cigars and vintage westerns with her feline companion. I was shown the ropes by her. Tension of the thread. Buttonholes are very fashionable. Tip for sargers. First things first. Very basic onesie, petite pants, delicate pink ruffled bloomers. Smiling through saliva and mayhem, I captured Lily and Jacob in each shot, draping themselves across homemade blankets. I began publishing after that. I gave the company the name Tiny Roots. I had written the following phrase in my diary a few weeks prior, and it inspired the name. "You need to take good care of them, and they will grow strong." The initial posts were unsuccessful, few likes, absent remark. I persisted, though. I stitched every day while I slept. I submitted product lists every night after lullabies and bottles. I made contact with mommy bloggers. Nearly everyone disregarded me. I gave out samples at no cost. A mother unfriended me. Someone else informed me, "It's adorable, but my followers exclusively purchase designer." I almost gave up for a split second. Sitting in the kitchen at 1 a.m., I said, "Maybe I'm just not enough," while sobbing over a spool of thread. Something did, however, occur the next morning. A picture of Cassidy's daughter wearing one of my rompers went viral. Cassidy is the woman who hired me to redo her bedroom. "Moms helping moms," she wrote. "You can't beat Tiny Roots." In less than 24 hours, I had 10 orders. I had to start a waiting list within the first week. It seemed unbelievable to me. I was being tagged by others, reaching out to me via message. "I am grateful." "I cried when I opened the package," one Texas mother wrote. Beside a photo of her infant wearing a delicate green onesie I had crocheted. It had the warmth and care of a handcrafted item. Indeed, she was correct. I thought so. Carefully crafted, on every level, no detail spared. Why? Because I wasn't only constructing a company, I was restoring myself. There was more to Tiny Roots than just baby apparel. When everyone else tells you it's over, it's time to start afresh. It was about making the decision to stand up while others chose to fall. I found meaning in every sequence. I was reassured that I was still important with every 5-star review. I could always tell when Lily and Jacob were playing together in their homemade matching sets because I was no longer merely surviving. I was undergoing a metamorphosis. Someone more powerful, someone from whom no one could ever truly escape. Since I had at last figured out, when all hope is lost, it teaches you to save yourself. The initial surge of orders was electrifying. I felt excited rather than dreadful as I woke up for the first time in months. The days were still hectic, with feedings, changing diapers, and chasing after my newly crawling twins, but at least I had a little something to myself again. An idea. The moniker Tiny Roots has become more than that. Truly it was. My living room served as my office, shipping station, sewing area, and on occasion sleep zone when I was feeling particularly sluggish. There were spools of thread tucked beneath the sofa fabric rolls, arranged along the wall, and Lily once attempted to ingest a safety pin that I had fallen near her playmat. Oh, I was drained at all times. However, I was constructing something. Even so, the metallic sheen quickly disappeared. Following the first surge of interest, the pace of orders started to decrease. My post-engagement decreased. Some mothers who responded to the survey said they were interested in the concept but thought the price was a bit much for handmade. There were weeks when I made 0 sales. Occasionally, I would receive an order at the last minute and sew all night long only to have the client cancel the next day. It was the hue wasn't what she expected that caused one woman to seek a refund. Another person said that I had stolen a design from a well-known business that I had never heard of. However, nothing bad happened. After pitching to a boutique, I received an email from them. Although your narrative is inspiring, our customers tend to choose brands that have been around for a while. Have a great time. It was more than simply a no. This world does not celebrate women who start afresh, as this served as a reminder. Having to juggle many bottles and brands isn't something that our system supports. It needs a good polish, just right, proven. Plus, I wasn't any of those things too. Everything began to seem questionable to me. Were my expectations too high for me to manage a company in my 700-square-foot apartment while caring for 2 young children? Was it naive of me to think anybody would pay attention to Made with Love when I could buy identical factory-produced clothing on Amazon for half the price? The figures were accurate. I was running low on funds. Rent was due on my account. I sat in the dark, held Jacob close, and said, maybe this was all a mistake. That was one night after receiving my energy company's last notice. The cosmos nevertheless has a knack for guiding you, even when you least expect it. Cassidy, the first mother who ever had faith in me, texted me that very night. Will you be all right? Seems like there hasn't been much activity on your website recently. My response was delayed. I almost gave up, but my pride wouldn't let me acknowledge it. I believe I'm done was the only thing I typed after that. Her response was prompt. I think not at all. Then came a second message. Some qualities are uniquely yours. You just require assistance in attracting attention. She had a point. Due to using a broken phone, my images were blurry. It appeared as though my website was a 2011 blog. All I had was my name in cursive, no logo. I had to prove to everyone not just that my work was valuable, but also why it was important. I had to swallow my pride and ask for assistance. In exchange for some baby clothing, a local photographer named Jules volunteered to perform a short picture session. She was also busy expanding her clientele and welcoming a daughter into the world. During the park's golden hour, we met. Jacob and Lily, matched in their coziest, most comfortable clothing. They were laughing and running barefoot in the grass, while Jules snapped their photo reaching for dandelions. Those pictures were just astonishing. Several days later, she emailed me the entire gallery, and as I browsed through them, I sobbed real deep sobbing. Reason being, I saw it for the very first time. All that love, this is the goal, the core. Clothes weren't the only issue. Time stood still. Regarding the subject of memory, when life gets tough, it's nice to envelop a youngster with beautiful things and make them feel safe. I redecorated the whole website, orderly design, branding refresh. Rather of just stating single mom sewing baby clothes, the updated bio said, the company was started by a woman whose life was reconstructed thread by stitch. Built to last, each item is painstakingly crafted by hand. I also began writing blog posts about it. Stayed up all night writing about managing a family and a business, regarding loss, grit, much obliged. I was really forthright. I recounted the times I sobbed on the kitchen floor, in reference to the times when I considered giving up. Regarding the occasion when, due to financial constraints, I had to feed my children cereal for supper for 3 consecutive evenings. Also being truthful, it struck a chord. Soon after, mothers began contacting me by message, rather than only for transactional purposes, except to express my gratitude for being authentic, for expressing the emotions they were unable to articulate. Once again, orders started coming in, but this time it wasn't due to my product sales, but rather the connections I was making. 2 orders were subsequently taken, next 10, finally 20. I struggled to keep up as time went on. Maria is a retired teacher who I recruited as a part-time sewing helper. She has a gentle chuckle and far steadier hands than I have. Finished items would be sent in a brown paper bag every Friday from her kitchen table across town where she worked. Email campaigns, scheduled blogs, and even local mommy and me gatherings to display my designs were all part of the marketing approach Cassidy helped me develop. There was no glitz to it. I spent a lot of money on coffee and worked late into the night and early into the morning. Nonetheless, the outcome was positive. On parenting message boards, the term tiny roots started making the rounds. Tasha Marie, a minor Instagram celebrity, showcased the romper she purchased for her son in a highlight clip that included my tale. Because of all the visitors the next day, my website was down. In addition to 2 letters inquiring about wholesale opportunities, I gained 400 new followers and 63 new customers. Sitting at my kitchen table that night, I stared at the TV in awe as Lily and Jacob slept in their bed. "You did it," I said aloud. "I don't mean to boast, no need to brag. I did this, though, just in case I forgot." Nathan wasn't it. Vinny, no. No one else who departed or had doubts about me. I am. Callahan Emma. Managing as a single parent, compact dwelling, exciting aspirations, moreover, enormous self-control. Since the reality is, a silk purse won't bring you success. It is clad in spittle perspiration and recycled optimism. Also, don't always give up when things don't work out. A test. I want to know if you're the kind to sew in the dark till the lights come on. Life threw me another curveball right when I thought I had got this. What with running a flourishing business, parenting 2 toddlers who could run faster than me, and making it through most days without bawling in the toilet. However, this time I was unbroken. As a result, I grew. A single letter was the beginning. During a visit with my mom, I discovered it tucked away in a dusty box that read Emma High School. I needed to find a picture of me in my cap and gown for a Mother's Day post, so I went searching. Unexpectedly, I stumbled onto something that would reknot a link I believed had been severed long ago. Unfamiliar handwriting appeared on the thin edge yellowing envelope. However, a thrill went through my chest when I saw the return address, Las Vegas, Nevada. My father had given it to me. Nathan wasn't it. My biological dad. I was 5 years old when he departed. That one my mom kept quiet about. The one I had falsely believed didn't give a hoot about staying. For what seemed like an eternity, I contemplated opening the envelope. Postmarked 7 years ago, it contained a letter. He boasted that he had maintained sobriety for more than 10 years. He said he had tried calling my mom many times, but she had never answered. He understood why she didn't give him a second opportunity and didn't hold it against her, but he wished I could hear the whole tale eventually. He provided a contact number. Also, I'd want to offer my sorry. I was unable to get any rest that night. Anger and wonder swung through my thoughts as I compared the woman who had risen from the ashes to the abandoned infant. His current desire was what? Above all else, though, what was it that I desired? Is it over? Am I forgiven? Unless it was only the missing piece of my identity puzzle that I had been searching for. I hesitated before calling. Like a delicate secret, I lugged the letter about in my handbag. Keep reading even when the lights are flashing red. While you slept, read it again. The folds eventually separated after several foldings. The following day, I called the number. There was a tremor in my hand. My voice sounded strange. A greeting. His voice had a deeper quality and a rougher quality than what I recalled. Silence fell upon the room as I called out my name. After that, I had a faint cry. "Can we meet up?" he inquired. Assumed he would have comprehended a negative response. A little obstinate part of me, nevertheless, said yes. I loaded up the car with the kids and headed to Nevada without any plans or expectations. On the outskirts of town, he resided in a little house. The lawn looked nice. At the end of the porch was a wind chime that tinkled in the dry desert air. To be honest, I hardly recognized him when he opened the door. His gaze, though, belonged to me. The identical tint of azure, accompanied by the identical twinkle of remorse. I didn't feel an attempt at an embrace from him. He kept his mouth shut. Rather than that, he escorted me to the kitchen where he prepared 2 cups of coffee and inquired whether I desired to be told the truth. Then I went ahead and did it. I listened for a long time. To stories of addiction, remorse, recovery. On the topic of shelter sleeping. Regarding the correspondence he never sent. Regarding the one occasion when he waited outside my primary school to observe me distantly. Nothing could take away the agony. However, it expanded its context. He was not a bad guy. He had no idea how to mend himself. He was a damaged guy. Curiously, that also made breathing easier. There was a delay before we became near. Overnight forgiveness and Hallmark embraces did not occur. We began off on a modest scale, though. An occasional monthly call, twins' birthday cards. He sent a used tricycle along with the message, "I hope they like blue." Gradually, an unexpected emotion began to surface within me. Calm down. For whatever transpired after that, that serenity was my anchor. Because another door banged shut on my way out right after the first one softly opened, out of nowhere it occurred. An email from a New York legal company arrived in my mailbox. The message's subject line reads, "Notice of trademark infringement." My heart was already beating as I clicked it. The bigger infant apparel business, Tiny Buds, had recently released their new nature-rooted collection, and the mail accused me of brand impersonation and aesthetic duplication of their work. They insinuated that my Tiny Roots brand was intentionally mimicking another. Took my breath away. They obviously knew who I was, but I had no clue who they were. For the following 12 hours, I went into a tailspin, perusing the entire cease and desist letter, as I compare their creations to my own, investigating the company's founders using Google. A prominent venture capital firm provided the funding for them. They were followed by 500,000 people on Instagram. Star endorsements, a warehouse, and a public relations staff were all part of their operation. Along with Maria, I had a $12.99 domain name, a sticky pedal sewing machine, and a few other things. Yet I have something more that they lacked: an account. I took to Instagram to share a lengthy, deeply moving statement. Truthfully, rather than furiously, I laid out the issue. I shared the letter, the accusation, and my dread of losing everything I had worked for with my followers. This is how I concluded it. With 2 infants, a little sleep, and an abundance of love, I began Tiny Roots at my kitchen table. No one copied me. If I didn't have what I required, I made it. Plus, I'm not going away. An enormous amount of people responded. There were hundreds of reshares of the post. People in positions of power who had previously shied away from me now rallied around me. Mothers spoke up about their own experiences with brand bullying. Here in my little online nook, hashtags like "Chicks Stand with Tiny Roots" and "Moms Supporting Moms" began trending. Next, the email that altered the course of events arrived. Someone from a nonprofit organization that provides legal services to women-owned companies contacted me. I was offered representation by them in lieu of compensation. Those following 3 months were hellish. I needed to find any evidence that I had created Tiny Roots prior to Tiny Buds, so I combed through old emails, sketchbooks, and time-stamped images. Some nights I cried myself to sleep, not because I was afraid of failing, but because I couldn't believe I needed to battle for my own survival. However, I persisted. They ultimately decided to withdraw the lawsuit. There is no need to apologize. Remain silent. Additionally, there will be no legal action. I was satisfied with it. The triumph wasn't only legitimate. On a personal level, it proved that my opinion counted, that what I did was worthwhile. I was entitled to my own space, regardless of how much the world attempted to squeeze me into it. I went for a lengthy stroll around the block with Lily and Jacob when everything had calmed down. Along the way, we saw a tranquil park, a little bookshop, and a mural reading, "Grow where you're planted." And then it hit me. Defeat, desertion, and treachery weren't the only things I had overcome. Even when the tempest hit, I remained firmly planted, because I had anchored myself so well. At this point in my narrative, I was no longer in the center. Something far greater was about to begin. Quiet turmoil was the way it began, as it is with most average days. The floor was covered with Cheerios when Lily spilt a bowl of them. Without trousers, Jacob would not budge. In addition to cleaning the interior of my laptop bag, I was also on the phone with my supplier. A typical Tuesday for a mompreneur. My phone started buzzing as I hefted the twins into their car seats, all in preparation for a nearby artisan festival, where my pop-up stand for tiny roots was taking place, a mysterious figure. As usual, I would disregard it. Spam calls and questionnaires were not in my time. I was compelled to respond, though. On the opposite side, there was silence. Next, a voice, familiar, exhausted, unsure. "Darling, it's Nathan." I had to grab the side of the counter to stabilize myself, after my stomach flopped so violently. Over 4 years had passed since I'd last heard that voice. Not since he left our flat and disappeared without a trace, leaving me to juggle my entire life with a phantom. Nothing came out of my mouth. In a low voice, he went on. "I noticed you, virtually speaking. What follows is the interview, its name, Little Ones. You have accomplished an extraordinary feat." I remained silent, reliving the nightmares, panic episodes, and icy quietness he left behind sent my thoughts racing. It was as if Nathan were lost for words, trying to find his footing in a conversation he had no business starting. As he cleared his throat, I realized that no one wants to hear from me. Some things just aren't meant for me. Still, I was hoping that we might have a conversation. No word yet. "This week I will be in Denver," he continued. "Anywhere would be okay for me to meet you. For the sake of conversation alone, I have no expectations. Oh, please." I paused to inhale deeply. 1 hour, I whispered. Outdoor area, nothing out of the ordinary. We got together in a peaceful coffee shop on the outskirts of town. I got here first. Tension, not exhilaration, was the reason my heart was pounding. I didn't still adore him for that reason. I was unsure of the version of him that would enter the room. When he did, he appeared diminutive. In terms of physical form, no. Still with the same towering stature and sharply clothed features that had melted my heart years ago. Nathan was Nathan, yet a part of him had deteriorated. Darker and more sunken were his eyes. His grin seemed uncertain, just like a guy who spent all those years practicing an apology he never had the chance to deliver. His voice was nearly labored when he spoke my name, Emma, as if it were painful. My response was a nod. "Nathan," I said. We took seats opposite one another. Countless years' decisions and heartache separate us. His pace was deliberate. "I was afraid you would despise me if I reached out earlier. I wouldn't hold it against you if you did." I drew in my elbows. "That's not the reason I haven't disliked you." He blinked, perplexed. I drew nearer. Hatred requires effort. There was none left over from me. I had a new life to reconstruct, along with money, a shattered heart, and infants. I would have paid a heavy price to hate you. With a heavy gulp, he dipped his head. He mentioned that he had seen your interview on that business show. You seemed joyful, sure of herself, like a person I had no business being with. "You're right," I stated directly. He grimaced. That was my due. After becoming silent, Nathan spoke an unexpected comment. "My decision to depart was not prompted by a loss of love for you." I averted my gaze. To what end, then? As if his coffee cup had the answers he fixated on the table and traced its rim. I was terrified. I fear I will lose everything. In the event that I let my loved ones down, I feel inadequate in comparison to you and the children. As my mom put it, I interrupted him. "Enough already. It's unfair to offer her that much praise. Your departure was abrupt. It was your choice. Using only your lips, on your own 2 feet. You just disappeared. Haughtily, he raised his head to peer up. I am aware, saying I begged you. I had a first ever tremor in my voice. I pleaded with you to remain. Listen, Nathan, I was cradling your kids in my arms. You abandoned them. I didn't just disappear. His eyes filled with tears. Ah, I see. Every single day after that event has been on my mind. I have my doubts. I have, he said behind his hand. There are countless occasions when I've considered phoning someone, but then I've talked myself out of it. That number of times I've stayed up watching old footage of us, the newborn twins. Their first steps, their first words, I didn't hear them. You missed everything, I remarked not brutally but honestly. Nathan retrieved a little envelope from his coat pocket. The likelihood of your forgiving me is low. I have no intention of ever being a part of your life again. All I did was write letters to them, regarding Lily and Jacob, not to elaborate. If only I could have remained, I wish I could have told them what I really wanted to say. The envelope was taken by me without its opening. In quiet we sat, and I finally stopped seeing Nathan as the guy who abandoned me, however, as the man who was unable to bear the weight that I did. The person just wasn't made to endure the challenging times, who prioritized their own safety over the love of another. A whispered, "I don't hate you," escaped my lips. Additionally, I am not dependent on you. This is not the time. Under no circumstances. With a sense of relief, Nathan slowly nodded. I deduced it. It was enough that you should know, from my end, for the final time. Uncertain of whether to embrace me, shake my hand, or simply vanish, once more he rose to his feet. He found it simple because of me. Without a word, I met his gaze. You disappeared for a while. Everything in that section is complete. No second chance. My children lead full and varied lives. An entire one. Same here. You have been removed from that narrative. Stop attempting to change it. With a nod he acknowledged, in silence, kind regards. He then proceeded to leave. I can't guarantee anything. Minimal show of grandeur. There will be no pleading for mercy. Similar to the initial instance, he departed. Still this time around, I stayed together. Reopening the door was not something I waited for. I was content with the way things turned out. Reason being he had moved on from this narrative. I owned it. I was not escaping it. Rather, I was emerging from it more powerful, smarter, and complete than before. A peculiar stillness settled over the weeks following Nathan's appearance. That was not the oppressive stillness of the evenings after his departure from my life many years ago. It was unique. The stillness that follows a tempest is like being able to hear your own breath for the first time. Sort that allows room for lucidity. That one door had me clinging so desperately, and I didn't even know it. Assuming he will soon knock, I may be secretly hoping for an apology that would finally heal my broken heart. However, hearing his voice and seeing the honesty in his eyes when standing across from him, finally it clicked for me. To feel whole, I didn't require his closure. Personally, I had already closed the chapter, in silence, now and then, piece by piece. Finally, I felt liberated. Little Roots was flourishing. The brand's steady growth followed its survival of the legal scare. In order to assist with large orders, I had teamed up with a nearby printing and packaging business. Now Maria worked full-time. Like I required when I was a parent, Angela and Brooke were searching for flexible employment, so we recruited them as part-time seamstresses. After outgrowing my apartment, I settled into a charming craftsman-style house in the middle of Golden, Colorado. There was a spare room that I transformed into a light and airy design studio, a fenced-in garden, and the kitchen island of my dreams. The couch cushions still contained Cheerios. Tantrums persist. There will still be early mornings and late evenings. However, at this point, I could relax, space to reside. The subject line of an email I received one morning nearly caused me to put down my second cup of coffee as I poured it into my inbox. Consideration National Retail Collaboration, Meeting Request. A buyer from Sprout Plus Kakewa, a leading national brand of environmentally concerned children's lifestyle products, sent it. My tale had been viewed by them, perused the blog, observed the social media updates. As part of their Mothers Who Build campaign, which showcases women who have built successful companies from the ground up, they wanted to include Tiny Roots. Providing storefront display space wasn't all they were doing. Partnership was their goal. Create an exclusive collection. It bears my name. Incredulous, I gazed at the screen. My whole body quivered. Before contacting Cassidy, who had become into more than simply a friend, I read the email 3 times. They were like family to her. She picked up the phone just as I was about to speak. Lily hurried over from across the room to inquire, "Are we winning something?" after she yelled into the phone. "Yes, darling," I said. "Mama has won something." A tornado ripped through the months that followed. For meetings, I took a plane to New York. Had my first alone hotel stay since before the twins were born. Entered meeting rooms and was met with a mix of admiration and gratitude from the individuals seated there. In the spring, the partnership began, a collaboration between Little Roots and Sprout Plus Co. Gentle organic cotton, subdued earth tones, and designs created by hand from ideas I had previously jotted down on the reverse sides of utility bills. They were gone in within 48 hours. The emails came flooding in, notes of congratulations. Moms sharing photos of their kids styled in my creations. Your story inspired me to strike out on my own after escaping a poisonous marriage, one lady commented. Not only do I wear your garments, but I also carry your bravery. I carried that message with me. It had never been primarily about the clothing, I realized. Storytelling has always been the focus. Concerning a lady who vowed never to let rejection to shape her. Featuring a mother who became famous after becoming a midnight bottle feeder of twins. Regarding an individual who not only survived but flourished, I remember standing by the window one night, after tucking Lily and Jacob into bed, seeing the wind rustle through the trees. My mind wandered to all the things that had slipped away. A bond that I once believed would last a lifetime. Feeling secure till the day he departed. Who I was when I thought I couldn't succeed solo. However, I also considered all the benefits I had received. Laughter fills the air in this home. I built my own career from the ground up. I had complete ownership of my future. Looking back, I could still picture myself in those first days, hunched over a needle and terrified, sitting on the floor as infants wailed and rent was still unpaid. What comes next? This is where I stood as a woman who had been shattered yet had remade herself, who had loved lost and realized her value was independent of whether or not another person stayed, who had escaped her suffering and found her calling. The blessing of Nathan wasn't necessary, no need to seek Vivian's approval. It was obvious to me that I had succeeded, reason being it was staring me in the face when my children giggle. To the orders that are coming in via my website, I saw a lady I had believed was gone for good as I glanced into the mirror. I had returned. This is different, much better. More sensible, enhanced visibility, a little more of myself. I was proud beyond all else. In terms of the brand, I created sales figures and media coverage. It's not enough. But of the hidden triumphs that go unrecognized, the days I persisted. On certain mornings, despite the weight of my anguish, I forced myself to get out of bed. On those evenings, I choose love above bitterness, calmness over fury, and action over fear. I achieved my true success with that. Also, I was aware of, no matter what happened after that, I was prepared. I had gone through flames because, to emerge radiant, the public adores a hero's triumphant return. All they see is the happy family in their matching costumes, the new house, and the thriving brand. They think it's all just a highlight reel, turned out. However, the most important bits go unnoticed. They had no idea how desperate I was to feed my infants the last can of soup, while hoping that the money for a personalized romper would clear so I could purchase diapers the next day. No one saw the innumerable times I looked in the mirror and wondered whether I was harming my kids by attempting to achieve an unattainable goal. The sound of my own bed was too loud for them to bear, so I would sleep on the floor of their room. They never understood. The most important thing I've picked up is this: fear and bravery are not mutually exclusive emotions. Even if you miss someone, you may still be sure they're not the one for you. It is possible to mourn the past while striving for the future. My mistaken belief about strength persisted for quite some time, yet now I understand. What follows breaking is strength. It's when everything are peaceful, under the cover of darkness, when the applause stops, as soon as you leave the floor of the restroom. As soon as you respond to yet another rejection email, when you cling to your children and assure them we're okay through your tears, even if you're not sure whether it's real. That type of power has tangible results, a solid foundation. As a kid, I thought being successful meant constantly surprising others, determining that Nathan is mistaken. This is incorrect, Vivian. These are the companies who rejected me, shops that thought they weren't a suitable match. But that frame of mind, it bound me to those who had previously sought to demolish me. Earning success isn't about getting even. Peace is success. When I wake up every day feeling that I am enough as an individual, I will have succeeded. Being able to calmly stock up on food for my children is a huge relief. Creating a new line is something I do when I'm excited, not when I'm in a bind. What that means is that I can now go to sleep without feeling a knot in my gut. Last but not least, seated opposite from the man who abandoned me when I was at my lowest ebb and flow, and show no fear, no fury, avoid pain. Come on, deep breath. For the simple reason that I have let go of the part of myself that pleaded to be selected. I am the one I've picked out. If you're here and it feels like you're sinking, like nothing is helping, and that doors are closing in your face, I want you to know you have plenty of time. You didn't break too badly. You are just the right size. Out of scraps of cloth and sheer desperation, I constructed a brand. Rejection became redirection when I did this. Being a mother is no longer an obstacle. It is a roadmap. Starting doesn't necessitate ideal conditions. All it takes is the bravery to think you deserve more. Also, don't allow yourself to be defined by a single setback because they will occur. Learn how to ascend with its help. Speak more clearly with its help. Ignite your passion with it. Plus, don't turn around to see who's cheering when you get up again, which you will. Take a look at yourself. Why? Because that lady. That one who persisted. She is the embodiment of strength, and your children will know this. Your narrative will have significance because of her. You were never weak because she proves it. All I have to do is wait for the perfect opportunity to become unbeatable.